What's up everyone, I'm the one and only Zage, and today we'll be covering Law vs Yamato. This is an interesting matchup that floats around in the community from time to time that I thought would be worth answering. Law is one of the three Yonko slayers of the new generation, and Yamato is the only princess that lives in the way of Kozuki Oden. But before we delve into it though, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy content like this. That'd be greatly appreciated. We'll be starting things off with Trafalgar Law, and it's no exaggeration to say that he's been one of the most impressive characters in the post timeskip. In the rooftop battle against the Yonko, he showcased he had the power to damage Kaido even with his base techniques such as tact, and more powerful techniques such as injection shot and Gamma Knife can damage Kaido's dragon forms. We know this for a fact, as not only does the Gamma Knife bypass durability, but Kaido admits that the worst gen can get through his defenses. Despite being able to damage Kaido, Law couldn't deal lasting damage, as even Luffy admits that his Ryo attacks in Gear 4 were too shallow. Kid admits something similar in the fight, that their attacks feel like they're ineffective against Kaido and Big Mom. However, as we learn later on, this wasn't all Law had to offer, as he reveals his awakening against Big Mom. The awakening of the Opi no Mi gives Law the ability to operate on his opponents without being in the room. The first way he does this is by coating his sword with his rune, making a K-rune or a Kroom. And the other way he does this is by throwing his rune at his targets, and he can operate on them from a distance, which is called Re-Room or the remote room. Law's most powerful techniques come from his Kroom. With Kid's assistance, Shock Will was strong enough to heavily damage base Big Mom to the point where she was forced to recognize their strength and powered herself up by sacrificing 1 year of her life. Law can use an even stronger Shock Will, which I'll be calling V2, which he used to heavily damage giant Big Mom. Again, with Kid's assistance, Law was able to break her arm and ribs, and Big Mom even singled out the dangers of Law's ability. Whenever Law is about to use his awakening attacks, Big Mom is clearly afraid of what it can do. The reason I'm highlighting Kid's assistance is that the damage dealt to Big Mom is due to consecutively attacking her. Law even says when telling Kid he wants to land the finisher that the first attack is supposed to be the weakening move and the last attack is the finishing attack. We've seen Law use the V2 Shock Will without any help in his fight against Blackbeard. Law was able to deal heavy damage, but he wasn't able to break any of his bones like he did against Big Mom. This goes to show how much more effective the combination attacks are compared to Law's attacks individually. Law's strongest awakened technique at the moment is the Puncture Will, which is essentially the Shock Will but on steroids. It seems the longer Kroom extends, the stronger the shockwave is, and the Puncture Will extends ridiculously far. Big Mom was frantically trying to prevent Law from pulling off this attack, and for good reason, as it dealt serious damage and left her heavily winded. The power of Law's attack could be seen from the massive crater that it left behind underneath Onigashima. As for Law's speed, he doesn't really have any notable speed feats, as a lot of the fight against Big Mom was Law landing attacks due to the openings Kid would give him and vice versa. During the rooftop battle, he was able to react to a swing from Hybrid Kaido, but the best speed feat for Law would be how he blitzed Misery, which is Big Mom's strongest attack she used in the raid. Even though he had next to no stamina left and was outside of his room, he still blitzed Misery and sliced it in two. In all honesty though, this is more of an indictment of Big Mom rather than it being a real strong positive for Law. The main reason being is that Misery clearly doesn't scale to Big Mom's speed, given how Big Mom weighted by a tower can react to Kid's Cornadillo, but Kid can easily dodge Misery. However, that's all I could really say about Law's speed, so it is what it is. Lastly, for his durability and endurance, Law could withstand attacks from Big Mom's homies and continue fighting. He was able to endure giant Big Mom's armament haki punches while he prepared his Puncture Will. Law can use a shield called Antibacterial Curtain, which he used to defend himself against Hybrid Kaido, although he was still sent flying. His best feat though would definitely be enduring a Thunder Bagua from Hybrid Kaido. Law did take heavy damage from this attack and was knocked down for the duration of Luffy's Conqueror's awakening, but he could still get back up and go on to fight Big Mom after this. After the raid on Onigashima, Law encounters Blackbeard, but this fight was largely off screen. There isn't really much to get from this other than the V2 Shock Will could clash with a Quake attack, which is impressive, but after some time, the battle ended as a win for Blackbeard, so that does it for Law, and now we can move on to the only princess, Yamato. She is the user of the mythical wolf Del Fruit, which not only gives her a boost in all of her stats, but gives her ice abilities as well. Yamato can use all 3 types of haki and can use armament and conqueror's haki at the advanced level, and the ability to use advanced conqueror's haki makes the user among the handful of the very strongest fighters. It also gives the user the power to deal lasting damage against Kaido, whereas something like advanced armament by itself can only deal shallow damage. Base Yamato opens the fight against Kaido by clashing their conqueror's coated attacks evenly. This is a good feat for Yamato's base, as the only person to clash Kaido like this before her was Luffy after awakening advanced conquerors. Luffy and base had surpassed his gear 4 from before, as his conqueror's coated attacks, despite it being crude and clumsy, it wasn't too shallow unlike Ryo gear 4. Yamato was strong enough to hold back a serious Kaido long enough for Luffy to return to the fight. I say serious Kaido because Yamato realized he was actually trying to kill her in this fight, which Kaido even admits to. That's not to say Kaido went all out, as we know he didn't use most of his strongest techniques, but it's still worth mentioning. When Yamato uses her hybrid form, she's able to clash against Kaido's conqueror's coated attacks back and forth a few times, as shown by the impact markers in this panel. When she does get blown back by Kaido's attack though, she's still able to stay on her feet. She can also use an ice breath attack called a Namuji Glacier Fang, which Kaido equalizes with his Boar Breath. Kaido's Boar Breath definitely has very inconsistent showings due to Kaido holding back and only using as much power as he deems necessary for his opponents. A low end for Yamato's ice breath attack would it be doing light damage to a Ryo gear 4, and a high end being able to damage Conqueror's coated Snake Man. This high end scale was based on the fact that Yamato did see gear 5 get hit by Kaido's Boar Breath and didn't react to it being different or more powerful than the one she faced. Generally, Kaido gets the better of Yamato in most of their exchanges, however she's able to react to and endure Kaido's attacks. With her Glacier Slash, she was strong enough to attack through Kaido's guard, knock him down, and also dislocated or cracked Kaido's jaw with a regular swing of her Kanabo. Her strongest technique is Kaido's signature Thunder Bagua, and with this technique she's able to match the speed of Kaido's Thunder Bagua as they hit each other in the head simultaneously. Her Thunder Bagua also made Kaido bleed from his head, and she used an ice armor to lessen the damage of Kaido's attack. Even though her shield was shattered and the effects of Kaido's Bagua took effect after the fight, Yamato was still tough enough to withstand the attack and keep her footing. Many tried to downplay Yamato's attack power due to the small amount of blood dropping from Kaido's head, however this doesn't actually give an accurate depiction of her power. The same way the Scabbard's Paradise Totsuka isn't stronger than Luffy's Conqueror's coated punches even though there's more blood spilled from the Scabbard's attack, the wider context is important to look at. We know for a fact that Yamato's attacks were dealing lasting damage and wearing down Kaido, as Onigashima was starting to collapse due to Kaido's powers weakening. All the attacks done to Kaido prior to Zoro's Ashura only dealt shallow damage, meaning most of the work in wearing down Kaido came from Luffy's one-on-one after chapter 1010 and Yamato's fight. Since Luffy's use of Conqueror's coating was crude and clumsy at the time, it's safe to say that Yamato put in the most work in wearing down Kaido up until the end of her fight. So Yamato is a pretty versatile fighter, as she's mainly a close quarters fighter with her Kanabo, but she can also use mid-range abilities and defensive abilities with her ice powers, like when she blocked the bomb caused by the Kazembo. Ultimately, the fight ended with Luffy's return to the rooftop of Onigashima, and Yamato was successful in holding off Kaido. Now that we covered both of these fighters, how would this battle actually go? It should be pretty obvious that Law's biggest issue in this fight will be dealing with Yamato's speed. Yamato won't have any problems keeping up with Law's attacks, especially against his awakening, as he can't use swap teleportation using Crew. Most of all, Law has no answer for Yamato's Thunder Bagua, as Kaido easily blitzed him with his Thunder Bagua and Yamato is able to match that speed. In general, Yamato is capable of keeping up with Kaido's speed while he's infused in Conquerors, which is more than what Law can speak for. On the other hand, Law's techniques would be very effective against Yamato, especially his awakening techniques like the Puncture Will, which would definitely deal heavy damage. However, given the prep time of this attack, Law would have to sit through a barrage of Conqueror's coated attacks. The Puncture Will also has no real speed scaling, as when he landed it on Big Mom, this was after Law had caught her off guard and used tack to knock her down with a tower to her head so he could jump on her. So Law would have to find a way to knock Yamato down first in order to prepare the Puncture Will, but considering Yamato could endure attacks from a Conqueror's coated Kaido such as the Thunder Bagua, she would be able to endure Law's attacks as well, but she would definitely be taking heavy damage. Even though she couldn't block Kaido's Thunder Bagua, she was still able to withstand the attack enough to not be knocked down, and she wasn't hampered by it for the rest of the raid, so she'd be okay facing off against Law's awakened techniques. Especially considering Blackbeard was able to clash with Law's V2 Shock Will with a regular Quake Punch, Yamato can definitely defend herself from Law's attacks, as she could defend herself against Kaido's Conqueror's Coated attacks. Her Ice Armor should also be effective in minimizing the damage she would take from Law, as Yamato thought she could block Kaido's Thunder Bagua despite him likely having internal Ryo, so her Ice Armor might actually be effective against durability negating attacks, but I'll leave that for you guys to decide. As for Law's durability and endurance, he won't be able to tank Yamato's Conqueror's Coated attacks that can deal lasting damage to Kaido, but he can endure them pretty well. However, since Law was taking heavy damage from Big Mom's homies and her armament haki punches, then hybrid Yamato's Conquerors and ice attacks would be very effective against Law. Unlike the other types of haki, Conqueror's haki only grows stronger as the user becomes overall stronger, and since Law is relative to the likes of Kid, who hasn't passed the strength threshold to be an advanced Conqueror, Yamato is clearly the stronger fighter. Anyways, that's all for this topic, so if you enjoyed, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. I've been the one and only Sage, and until next time.